It started on a Tuesday, the kind of day where nothing stands out. My name is Marcos, I'm 45, an electrical engineer, and for the past 12 years, I thought I was living a decent, ordinary life. My days were defined by stability. Morning coffee at 6, a long commute to the firm, spreadsheets, safety checks, and coming home to my wife, Juliana, and our 8-year-old daughter, Isabella. I didn't chase excitement. I chased peace, or at least the idea of it. Juliana used to kiss me goodbye every morning. Lately, she just nodded from behind her phone. I chalked it up to routine fatigue. Marriage gets tired, I told myself. Love doesn't have to be loud, but it was the silences that started to scream. At night, she'd be in bed already, the glow of her screen reflecting off her glasses. If I asked what she was watching, she'd say, "Just something dumb," and turn it off. We barely touched. The last time she reached for my hand was when I nearly tripped on Isabella's backpack. She grabbed me instinctively, then let go like my skin had burned her. The oddest part, Gustavo started showing up more often. My best friend since college, he used to drop by once every couple of weeks. Then it became every weekend. Then midweek. He said he was helping Juliana with renovation ideas for the living room. He's a contractor, so it made sense. Kind of. They laughed a lot. More than we did. I'd come home and find them in the kitchen, heads together over color palettes. I told myself it was good. Juliana needed to socialize more. I trusted Gustavo with my life. Hell, he was Isabella's godfather. But something about the way she touched her hair around him, the way he looked at her when she walked away, it chipped at me. Still, I didn't say a word. I buried it, like I always did with things I didn't want to believe. And then, one morning, Isabella forgot her tablet on the couch. I wasn't trying to snoop. It was early, a Saturday. Juliana had taken Isabella to her ballet class, and I was finishing the dishes when I noticed the blinking screen on the couch. Isabella's tablet, wide open, unlocked, and glowing with unread notifications. I picked it up just to turn it off, that's all. But the lock screen showed a message preview. "Last night was perfect. Can't wait to hold you again." I froze. The contact name wasn't saved, just a phone number. My heart started pounding. I shouldn't have opened it. I know that, but I did. Inside the chat were dozens of messages, some recent, some weeks old. Photos, voice notes. One of them was unmistakably Gustavo's voice, whispering something I couldn't bear to hear twice. I scrolled slowly, unable to stop. There were heart emojis, intimate details, and references to places Juliana and I had never been, but she had, with him. The account was synced with Juliana's phone, probably through the same email she used for Isabella's profile. A simple mistake, or maybe a sign. Either way, it was all there, right in my hands. I sat down on the floor, tablet resting on my knees, reading Betrayal in real time. My mouth went dry, I couldn't move. The timeline of the messages went back months, birthdays, holidays, days when I had been right there, in the house, clueless. I wanted to confront her immediately, to scream, to drive to Gustavo's house and punch through his perfect wooden door. But instead, I took a deep breath, turned off the tablet, and placed it exactly where I'd found it. Then I went to my desk, pulled out a blank notebook, and wrote down the date and time. I started a log. Every message I remembered, every voice note, every screenshot I'd take later, it all went into that notebook. If this was the life she'd chosen, I wasn't going to stop her, but she wouldn't get to walk away clean. From that morning on, I stopped being the husband she thought she knew. I didn't yell, I didn't cry. I didn't even flinch when Juliana walked through the door later that day, humming like nothing had happened. I offered to make lunch. She declined, said she was tired. I smiled. My hands shook under the table. That night, I waited until she fell asleep, her phone charging beside her on the nightstand. I didn't touch it. Instead, I set up screen recording software on my computer and installed a simple syncing app that connected with our home Wi-Fi. Every time she sent or received a message on certain platforms, I'd see it. Over the next few weeks, I gathered everything. Screenshots, photos, voice memos. I even recorded a video call between them where they joked about how dumb I was, how easy it would be to keep lying just a few more months. Each file was carefully labeled, time-stamped and backed up in multiple locations, a USB drive hidden in my car, a cloud folder under a fake email address, and a hard drive I kept at the office. I didn't want revenge. I wanted precision, a clean record. In public, I kept playing my role: husband, friend, provider. We went to family lunches, school meetings, even a beach weekend, all three of us. Gustavo came by on Sunday afternoons to help fix the garden lights. He drank my beer, used my tools. I watched them closely, memorized how they moved, how they smiled when they thought I wasn't looking. I noticed how she dressed better when he was coming over, how she turned off her phone when I was in the room. At night, I lay in bed beside her, staring at the ceiling while she typed under the covers. I said nothing. I didn't touch her. I barely slept. I was no longer part of that marriage. Not really. I was just the quiet observer. And I was building a case. One message at a time. There's a special kind of pain in pretending not to know. Every morning I woke up next to Juliana, kissed Isabella goodbye, and drove to work as if nothing inside me had cracked. I became a man split in two. One part of me played the loyal husband, the devoted father. The other lived underground, feeding on secrets, collecting evidence like oxygen. Juliana grew bolder, or maybe just careless. She'd take long showers in the evening, and I could hear her giggling softly through the steam. Gustavo started texting her during family dinners. She'd tilt the screen just enough so I wouldn't see. Sometimes she didn't even bother hiding. She'd say it was work-related, something about invoices or estimates. I nodded, smiled, refilled her glass. At one point, they started using nicknames. She was Lua. He was Liao. I added those aliases to my logbook. Every time they made a plan to be together soon, I highlighted it. I also tracked their inconsistencies. The dates, Juliana said she was with her sister, but her sister posted photos from another city. Tiny cracks, but enough to widen later. The hardest part was staying normal for Isabella. She was too young to understand, but kids sense tension, like animals sense storms. I kept my tone soft with her, maintained routines. Bedtime stories, hair brushing, pancakes on Saturdays. She didn't deserve the wreckage her parents were creating. Sometimes I'd watch Gustavo laugh with her in our backyard, pushing her on the swing I built myself. My fists clenched, but I said nothing. Not yet. One night, after Juliana went to sleep, I stood in the hallway for a long time, just stood there, listening to the tick of the wall clock, the faint rustle of sheets behind the door. I looked at the family photos lining the corridor. Birthdays, beach days, fake smiles frozen in frames. I realized I wasn't waiting for the truth to come out. I was crafting its perfect arrival. It was a Tuesday evening when I made the decision. Juliana's birthday was in 3 months, and I circled the date in red ink on the calendar in our kitchen. She saw it the next morning and smiled, assuming it was a gesture of affection. "You remembered," she said, brushing my arm. I just nodded. That night, after she fell asleep, I began planning everything, quietly, methodically. I booked a private dining room at her favorite restaurant, the one where we'd celebrated our 10th anniversary. I told the manager it was for a surprise party and asked for a projector to be installed. He agreed without asking too many questions. I paid in advance. Next came the guest list. Her parents, her sister, a few friends, and, of course, Gustavo. I wrote each name carefully on a notepad, just as I'd written down every message, every lie, every moment she thought I wasn't watching. I called them myself, invited them with warmth in my voice. No one suspected a thing. Then came the gift. I went to an electronics store and bought a sleek, gold-colored USB drive. I even had it engraved, "With all my love." The clerk thought it was sweet. I smiled and thanked him. Back home, I transferred everything onto the drive. Messages, photos, audio clips. I organized it into folders named with dates and brief descriptions. Weekend in Buzios, audio by the sink, kitchen at 2 a.m. Nothing graphic, just honest, real, undeniable. For the weeks leading up to the dinner, I acted lighter, even affectionate. I brought her flowers one afternoon. She seemed surprised but pleased. "You've been different lately," she said, in a good way. I just smiled. Inside, I felt calm, not angry, not broken. I knew exactly what I was going to do. And on that night, when everyone raised their glasses to toast her, they'd be toasting something else without knowing it. The final moment before the mask came off. The night of the dinner, everything looked perfect. The restaurant had arranged the room exactly as I'd requested. One long table in the center, soft amber lighting, and a large flat screen mounted discreetly on the wall behind Juliana's seat. A vase of white lilies stood at each end of the table, her favorite. She wore a light blue dress that night, the one she hadn't worn since our last vacation. Gustavo arrived early. He shook my hand like a brother. I poured him a glass of wine. Juliana's parents hugged me warmly. Her sister joked about how well I'd organized everything. I made sure everyone had a seat. Then I placed a small wrapped box next to Juliana's plate. She noticed it immediately. "All ready?" she asked with a grin, touching the ribbon. "Later," I said. "After dessert." We ate, we drank. There were toasts, laughter. For nearly an hour I played the role so well I almost convinced myself it wasn't real. The betrayal, the months of silence, the double life that had eaten away at our marriage like rust. Then the waiter came in with the cake. Everyone sang, cameras flashed. Juliana closed her eyes, made a wish, and blew out the candles. I clapped, kissed her cheek, and handed her the small gift box. She opened it slowly, still smiling. When she saw the gold USB drive, she looked confused. "What is it?" she asked. "Memories," I said gently. Then I turned to the waiter and nodded. The screen behind her flickered on. At first, people thought it was a video montage, but it wasn't photos of birthdays or vacations. It was text messages, screenshots, audio clips, short video snippets. Her voice, Gustavo's voice, her laughter, his promises. The room went silent. One by one, the guests stopped chewing, stopped drinking. The laughter evaporated. Juliana's eyes froze. She turned slowly toward me, lips parted but speechless. Gustavo's hand dropped from the table. He didn't move. No one did. And I sat there, still and composed, watching her world finally reflect the truth I had carried alone. No one said a word for what felt like minutes. The screen faded to black. Juliana stared at it like it might turn back on and tell her it was all a dream. Her mother's hand hovered near her mouth, frozen mid-reach. Gustavo looked down, then up, then down again, his jaw tight, sweat gathering at his temples. I stood up calmly, picked up my jacket from the back of the chair, looked at Juliana. Her face was pale, eyes wide, fingers gripping the edge of the table. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Whatever she wanted to say would have been too late anyway. I didn't want a scene. I didn't need apologies. What could either of them possibly say that would matter? So I turned to Isabella, who had been sitting beside me the whole time, too young to understand the weight of what she'd just seen. I leaned down, kissed her forehead, and whispered, "Let's go, sweetheart." She nodded, clutching her little bag, and stood up without question. I didn't look back as I walked toward the door, only paused to thank the waiter and hand him an envelope with his tip. He nodded silently, eyes lowered. Outside, the night air felt heavier than I expected, thick and warm. I held Isabella's hand as we crossed the parking lot. She asked me if Mommy was okay. I paused. "Mommy just needs some time," I said softly. We got in the car. I started the engine, and the silence filled the cabin. Not tense, just full. Isabella leaned against her seat, her head resting on the window. I glanced at her in the rearview mirror. Her eyes slowly closed. I turned onto the main road, headlights cutting through the dark, the city quiet around me. No music, no talking. Only the soft hum of the engine and the rhythmic breath of my daughter asleep behind me. And in that silence, I felt something loosen. Not anger, not joy, just release. Juliana filed for joint custody exactly 12 days later. The documents arrived by courier, neatly stapled, full of polite legal language. I wasn't surprised. After the dinner, she had gone silent. No calls, no messages, nothing. But this was her way of trying to claw back some control. She didn't want to lose Isabella. I understood that. But I wasn't going to let her win the narrative. I didn't retaliate. I responded. My lawyer, Paolo, had already seen the files. I handed him the full drive, including folders not shown at the dinner, messages about Isabella, about how he'll be a good weekend dad, and how they'd eventually move in together once things settled. Paolo's eyebrows lifted at some of it. "She handed this to us," he said, "on a silver platter." In court, Juliana played the part she knew best. Calm, hurt, misunderstood. She wore light colors. She cried gently, claimed I had humiliated her, damaged her reputation, that I used our daughter as a pawn. But the judge was methodical. He asked direct questions. He asked about the timeline, the lies, the involvement of Gustavo, who, by the way, didn't show up. My team presented dates, screenshots, and voice recordings. We focused only on what affected Isabella: instability, dishonesty, risk. I didn't smear Juliana. I didn't raise my voice. I answered when asked, kept my tone even. At one point, the judge looked over his glasses and said, "Mr. Andrade, how did you manage to stay so composed through this?" I said, "Because I had my daughter watching me." 2 weeks later, the ruling came in. Full custody awarded to me. Visitation allowed under supervision for the first 6 months. Outside the courthouse, Juliana sat on a bench alone. I walked past without slowing down. Isabella wasn't with me that day. She was at my mother's painting. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The law had seen the truth, and now everyone else had too. After the court ruling, I moved us out of the apartment within a week. I found a smaller place on the other side of town. Quieter, simpler. A 2-bedroom with a little balcony where Isabella could keep her plants. The walls were bare at first, but slowly filled with her drawings, new photos, pieces of our new life. I left behind all the furniture Juliana had chosen. I didn't want any of it. I didn't even take the couch. Our new routine was lighter. Mornings became slower, softer. I started walking Isabella to school instead of just dropping her off in the car. She talked more, laughed more. At night, we cooked together. Simple meals, sometimes just pancakes for dinner, and I let her choose the toppings. It didn't matter what we ate. What mattered was the calm. I reconnected with myself too. Started reading again. Picked up my guitar after years of silence. I didn't post anything on social media. I didn't tell people what happened unless they asked. And even then, only what was necessary. My dignity was mine to carry, not a story to be retold for pity or applause. Juliana tried reaching out twice during the first month. The first time, it was a message about clothes Isabella had left behind. The second, she asked if we could talk, just the two of us. I didn't respond to either. I had nothing left to say. Gustavo disappeared entirely. No calls, no emails. Mutual friends said he left the country for a job. I didn't care enough to check. The real victory wasn't the court decision. It was this: watching my daughter sleep peacefully at night, no tension in her little shoulders, hearing her hum to herself as she colored, feeling the absence of lies in the air we breathed. Some nights I stood by her door and just listened to her breathe. I wasn't healing for revenge. I was healing because I could, because I owed it to myself, and I was finally doing it on my terms. It was a grey Sunday afternoon, the kind that makes everything feel slower. I was folding laundry in the living room while Isabella built a castle of pillows on the floor. My phone buzzed once, an unknown number. I let it ring. Then it buzzed again. This time, I answered. It was Juliana. Her voice came through quiet, almost unfamiliar. "Hi," she said, "it's me." I didn't respond right away, just waited. I've been thinking a lot," she continued, "about everything. About Isabella. About you." There was a pause, a deep breath. "I made so many mistakes. I see that now." She started crying, softly, not dramatically. Real tears. "I miss her," she said. "I miss both of you." I looked at Isabella, who was laughing, stacking cushions higher than her head. She had no idea her mother was on the line. Juliana went on, her words tangled in apology and longing. "Do you think there's any chance we could fix this? I mean, maybe not everything, but something." I stood still. The silence between us stretched for a long moment. Then I answered calmly, firmly, "I don't hate you, Juliana. I really don't. But I'm not the same man. And you're not the same woman. Whatever we had, it's gone." She didn't argue, just whispered, "I understand." I ended the call gently. No anger, no bitterness, just finality. That night, as I tucked Isabella into bed, she asked if I'd stay until she fell asleep. I did. I watched her eyelids flutter shut, her breath settle into rhythm. The house was quiet, solid, ours. I sat on the edge of my bed later, holding the phone in my hand. I didn't delete the call. I just saved the number as Juliana passed. I had carried the truth in silence, delivered it without violence, and rebuilt from the ground up. And now, for the first time in a long time, I slept through the night.